Boxing Truth here, back with another video. Make sure to smash that like button, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Alright. The moment of truth has come for Errol Spence. Is he going to make a major duck move? Is he going to swerve Terrence Crawford and expose himself to the boxing world that he's simply not ready for that smoke, not ready for that work, and he's going to decline a unification and just swerve Terrence Crawford because he knows and senses that Crawford will be too much for him, especially coming off that layoff, eye injury, and a bad performance. So the moment of truth has come for Errol Spence. I'm expecting him to make the duck move. I'll be surprised, frankly, if he goes straight to a Terrence Crawford fight. He's trying to find every variable possible, every situation possible where people will defend him. You know, his dick riding fans will actually defend the duck move if he has to fight a mandatory, or if he was trying to fight Ugas. That plan got derailed when WA said nah and forced Ugas to fight his Mando. He's been looking for other avenues to try to avoid this Terrence Crawford smoke. Crawford has requested for the IBF to be mandatory for Errol Spence's belt to see if Errol Spence will really duck Terrence Crawford and vacate the title. That has yet to be seen if the Don of the IBF, Daryl Peoples, is going to install Crawford as mandatory. It's been done before. WC did that with Kovalev when he was the champion, made him #1 to Adonis Stevenson, but not with much success. So it's been done before. All people had to do is put in the word, you know, write the requests, inform the IBF, and maybe something can come about this. So Errol Spence no longer has a mandatory challenger right now. The duck move was erased by a guy named Cody Crawley, who is not ranked. He was undefeated, but not ranked in the IBF rankings, so he's not going to get that spot. He's not going to leapfrog all these contenders because he beat the #1 guy in the IBF. He's most likely going to get a rating, maybe even within the top 5, maybe even gets a chance at an eliminator, but he's not going to be the mandatory after he upset Kuretatiel Akadarov. Akadarov had a bad performance. He didn't fight well, got beat, and lost a decision and lost his title shot in the process. A title shot he's been waiting for a long motherfucking time. And it just went up in smoke, just like that in one night, one bad performance. So he's out. And there's no one ranked with it for #1 or #2. So there's going to be eliminators ordered between Ennis and Ortiz. I doubt this fight happens. Ortiz is already ranked with #1 for 2 organizations. Don't think he's going to do an eliminator when he's already in the mandatory position. Conor Benn, no chance. He fights Gerald Ennis. He's fighting washed non-punchers who are not welterweights. So he's still in the development phase. Evan Esian is probably going to take that smoke. He might take that chance and fight Jerome Ennis in eliminator. But this, makes Spence, it's going to be put a lot of pressure on him if there's no mandatory ordered upon him. There's not really a great chance that WC is going to order a mandatory on Spence. I mean, they're very loose with their regulations and rules. They take years at times to order mandatories for their champions, depending on how big the name of the champion is for the WC. So I don't really see WC ordering Ortiz to fight Spence as a man of the WC just yet. But of course, people want to jump to conclusions that just because Crawford asked to be the Mando that he's going to have to take a certain split. Look, this is where you expose yourself as casuals. Read the motherfucking rules. I've been telling y'all for years. Read the rules of the organizations. They determine pretty much everything what's going to happen to the sport, especially when it comes to rankings and eliminations and title shots. You have to read the rules. And every rule has a little clause in it. At the discretion of the organization. It might be set at this rule, it might be set at this percentage, but it is always a rule. There's always a clause right behind it, at the discretion of the organization, which means that it can be changed. Now, just because Terrence Crawford has asked to be mandatory doesn't mean he's going to be locked in stone and getting this 35% split. It doesn't mean that. That is how it will start. As you can see, the disbursement is a bid proceed. Say it goes to a burst bid, right? And Crawford is the mandatory Spence for the IBF as champion. Under the rules, the champion will receive 65%, the challenger will receive 35%. Of course, this will differ if the title is vacant. Each boxer will receive 50%. However, like it says right here, notwithstanding the first bid percentage described herein, if the circumstances so warrant, as you can see the clause right here, if the circumstances so warrant, the president or the championship chairman may make a recommendation to the board of directors that a different purse split be employed. There you go. Just so Crawford could negotiate with Spence for a higher split. And also the president and the chairman committee of the IBF can make a recommendation for a totally different split if this scenario was to come off. And just in case this request is actually granted for Terrence Crawford to be installed as a mandatory for the IBF. Doesn't mean that he's going to get a 35% split. They may make a recommendation for a different purse split, maybe 50-50, maybe 60-40, maybe 55-45. Whichever it is where they can make a deal. So Crawford is putting the word out there. He's asked the IBF directly, can he please be the mandatory for Spence's IBF title? Just to see if he's actually going to pull off this duck move of the century, which I anticipate. Spence don't want that smoke, at least not next. I'd be very surprised if he fights Terrence Crawford next because there's no other option. Akaderov got beat. He's no longer mandatory for the IBF. Ugas is forced to fight Stanionis. He's most likely going to lose that fight. And you got Jerome Ennis weighing in the wings. He's knocking on the door, waiting for an elimination bout. Virgil Ortiz is the #1 contender for the WBC, so the walls are closing on Errol Spence. So he has to decide who does he want to take an L to, coming off the eye injury in the layoff. Does he want to get beat by a rising prospect, like for instance Jerome Ennis and Virgil Ortiz, or does he want to get beat in a legacy fight against Terrence Crawford? And he still has a chance to win the fight. He won't be at his best coming off that injury and layoff, but he'll still have a chance. So those are the questions. The walls are closing in. All three of those guys have great chances of beating them because of the version and because of the circumstances Spence is coming off from his last fight. So are you going to take an L against a prospect, a rising contender who is dangerous, or are you going to take an L in a legacy fight for 3 belts, be considered the lineal champion, and a lot of money on the table? It's up to you, Earl. We expecting the duck move, but we're just going to wait patiently and see what you do. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.